In the small town of Millfield, life moved at a slow and predictable pace. The streets were lined with modest houses, their gardens bursting with colorful flowers during springtime. Children played outside until sunset, while adults exchanged friendly greetings over white picket fences. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and secrets. But for Ethan Carter, this familiarity brought more discomfort than comfort. Ethan was different from the other kids, his age. While they spent afternoons playing soccer or video games, he preferred solitude. His sanctuary was the tiny garage behind his house, cluttered with tools, wires, and half-finished projects. There, he could escape the noise of the world and lose himself in books about science, technology, and outer space. He dreamed of distant galaxies, alien civilizations, and futuristic inventions, things far removed from the mundane reality of Millfield. To most people, Ethan seemed strange, even odd. They didn't understand him, and frankly, they didn't try. At school, Ethan's quiet nature made him an easy target for bullies. Among them, Derek Malone stood out as the worst offender. Derek was tall, athletic, and loud, the exact opposite of Ethan. He ruled the hallways with a cocky swagger, flanked by his loyal group of friends who laughed at every cruel joke he cracked. Derek thrived on attention, especially when it came at someone else's expense. And unfortunately for Ethan, he had become Derek's favorite punching bag. It all started innocently enough, or as innocent as bullying could be. At first, Derek would mock Ethan's clothes, which were slightly outdated hand-me-downs from his older brother. Then came jokes about Ethan's lack of social skills. "Hey, Brainiac," Derek would sneer as Ethan walked past. "How many robots did you build today?" His friends would roar with laughter while Ethan kept his head down, pretending not to hear. But Derek wasn't satisfied with mere insults. Over time, his pranks grew meaner and more public. One day, Ethan arrived at school to find that someone had scrawled "nerd" in giant letters across his locker using permanent marker. The entire hallway erupted in giggles as Derek proudly admitted to the vandalism. Another time, Derek tripped Ethan in the cafeteria, sending his tray of food crashing to the floor. As Ethan scrambled to clean up the mess, Derek leaned back in, his chair smirking. "Oops, clumsy much?" he taunted, drawing more snickers from nearby students. Each incident chipped away at Ethan's confidence, forcing him to retreat further into his shell. Despite the relentless torment, Ethan refused to fight back, at least not in the way Derek expected. Fighting wasn't his style. Instead, he poured his energy into his work. In the evenings, after finishing his homework, Ethan would retreat to his garage and immerse himself in his projects. Sometimes he built gadgets inspired by the science, fiction novels he loved. Other times he experimented with circuits and electronics, teaching himself how things worked through trial and error. These creations gave him a sense of control, a reminder that there was still beauty and wonder in the world, even if Derek couldn't see it. One Saturday morning, while rummaging through a local junkyard for spare parts, Ethan stumbled upon something unusual, an old satellite dish. It was battered and rusted, its surface covered in grime, but Ethan saw potential in it. With a little effort, he thought, it might be salvageable. He hauled it home and set to work cleaning and repairing. Piece by piece, the dish began to take shape again. By the end of the week, it gleamed like new, mounted securely on a tripod in the corner of the garage. Curiosity drove Ethan to test the dish's capabilities. After connecting it to his computer, he aimed it toward the night sky and activated the system. Static crackled through the speakers at first, but then something unexpected happened. Amidst the noise, Ethan detected faint patterns, repeating sequences that hinted at intelligence. His heart raced as he realized what he might be hearing, signals from outer space. Could it be possible? Were aliens trying to communicate with Earth? The idea thrilled and terrified him in equal measure. For days, Ethan fine-tuned the equipment, recording every signal and analyzing the data. Slowly but surely, the patterns became clearer. They weren't random bursts of static. They were deliberate messages, encoded in a language unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Ethan's mind buzzed with questions. Who, or what, was sending these signals? What did they want, and why had they chosen now to reach out? Weeks passed. Ethan grew increasingly obsessed with decoding the mystery. He spent hours poring over charts and graphs, cross-referencing frequencies and running simulations. Sleep became a luxury he could no longer afford. Meals were forgotten, unless his mother insisted he eat something. Even Derek's bullying seemed distant, muted compared to the excitement of unraveling this cosmic puzzle. Then one evening, as Ethan adjusted the satellite dish to focus on a particularly strong signal, his computer screen flickered. A series of symbols appeared, glowing softly, against the dark background. They weren't just random shapes, they formed intricate designs that pulsed rhythmically, almost hypnotically. Ethan stared at them, transfixed. Suddenly his vision blurred, and the room spun around him. When the dizziness subsided, he found himself staring at images projected directly into his mind. He saw vast fleets of ships cruising through the void of space, sleek and menacing. Alien beings communicated through flashes of light, their movements fluid and precise. Planets crumbled under the force of their attacks, reduced to rubble in seconds. Then, abruptly, the images shifted. A map materialized, overlaid with coordinates, pointing to a location near Millfield. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Was this a warning? An invitation? Or something worse? For the first time, doubt crept into Ethan's thoughts. He had always imagined meeting extraterrestrial life as a moment of awe and wonder. But these visions painted a darker picture, one of conquest and destruction. Whatever these aliens wanted, it wasn't peace, and somehow, impossibly, they had chosen Millfield as their next destination. That night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced with possibilities. Should he tell someone? Who would believe him? More importantly, who could help? As the hours ticked by, one thing became clear. He couldn't face this alone. But before he could act, he needed answers. Tomorrow, he decided he would follow the coordinates and uncover the truth for himself. Little did he know, this decision would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire planet. The next morning, Ethan woke up before sunrise, his mind buzzing with anticipation. He hadn't slept much the night before, too consumed by thoughts of the alien signals and the coordinates pointing to a location near Millfield. The glowing symbols he had seen in his mind still lingered like a vivid dream, or perhaps a warning. Whatever it was, Ethan knew he couldn't ignore it. If these aliens were planning something dangerous, humanity needed to know. After grabbing a quick breakfast and packing supplies, flashlight, notebook, water bottle, and a small toolkit, he slipped out of the house while his parents were still asleep. The streets were quiet, bathed in the soft light of dawn. Birds chirped lazily from nearby trees, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of dew-covered grass. For a moment, Ethan felt a pang of guilt for sneaking out without telling anyone where he was going. But how could he explain this? Who would believe him if he said he was following clues sent by aliens? It took nearly an hour of walking through winding paths and narrow trails before Ethan reached the area marked by the coordinates. The spot was deep in the woods, far from any houses or roads. Thick trees surrounded him, their branches forming a natural canopy overhead that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the ground. Ethan paused to catch his breath, scanning the area cautiously. At first glance, everything seemed ordinary. Fallen leaves carpeted the forest floor. Squirrels darted between tree trunks, and the occasional rustle of bushes suggested the presence of unseen wildlife. But then he saw it, a faint glow emanating from behind a cluster of rocks. His heart skipped a beat as he approached cautiously, unsure of what awaited him. Pushing aside some vines, he discovered the source of the light, a strange object partially buried in the earth. It wasn't made of metal or stone. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent sheen, pulsating softly like a living thing. Ethan hesitated, his hand hovering just above it. What was this? A piece of alien technology? Or something even more mysterious? Summoning his courage, Ethan touched the object. Instantly, a surge of energy coursed through him, flooding his mind with images and sensations so intense they left him dizzy. He stumbled backward, clutching his head as visions overwhelmed him. He saw massive starships descending upon planets, obliterating cities with beams of searing light. He witnessed beings communicating not through words, but through flashes of color and sound, their movements synchronized like dancers in perfect harmony. And then, amidst the chaos, he caught glimpses of Earth. Its oceans, its mountains, its sprawling cities, all targeted by the same fleet of ships. When the visions finally subsided, Ethan collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air. His clothes were damp with sweat, and his hands trembled as he tried to steady himself. The message was clear. These aliens weren't explorers seeking friendship. They were conquerors, intent on plundering Earth's resources and eradicating its inhabitants. The artifact wasn't just a beacon, it was a warning. Someone, or something, wanted humanity to prepare for what was coming. Ethan sat there for a long time, staring at the glowing object, his mind racing. This wasn't something he could handle alone. Yet who could he trust? Telling authorities seemed impossible. They'd dismiss him as a delusional teenager. Even his own family might think he'd lost his mind. No, he realized, he needed evidence. Something tangible that could convince others of the truth. Carefully, he examined the artifact, searching for a way to transport it back home. Its surface was smooth and cool to the touch, yet it radiated a subtle warmth that made it feel almost alive. Ethan hesitated, unsure whether removing it was safe. What if it triggered some kind of alarm? What if the aliens already knew he had found it? Despite his fears, he decided to take the risk. Wrapping it in a blanket from his backpack, he carefully lifted it and began the journey back to his garage. By the time he returned home, the sun was high in the sky, and his muscles ached from carrying the heavy object. His parents were out running errands, leaving him free to work undisturbed. Placing the artifact on his workbench, Ethan studied it intently, taking detailed notes about its appearance and behavior. He noticed that the pulsations grew stronger whenever he moved closer to his satellite dish, as though the two devices were somehow connected. Intrigued, he positioned the dish directly above the artifact and activated the system. To his amazement, the static-filled noise from the previous night transformed into a series of melodic tones. Each tone corresponded to a specific pattern of lights emitted by the artifact, creating a symphony of sound and color that filled the room. Ethan quickly recorded everything, jotting down notes and sketching diagrams to document the phenomenon. As hours passed, he began to decipher fragments of information embedded within the signals. The language was unlike anything human, but its logic was mathematical, allowing Ethan to make sense of certain phrases. From what he gathered, the aliens referred to themselves as the Zorathians, a highly advanced species capable of interstellar travel. Their society valued efficiency and conquest, viewing weaker civilizations as obstacles to be eliminated. According to the messages, the Zorathians had identified Earth as their next target due to its abundant resources, water, minerals, and biological materials essential for sustaining their empire. Worse still, they considered humanity primitive and unworthy of negotiation. To them, humans were little more than pests to be exterminated. As Ethan pieced together the full scope of the threat, a chilling realization settled over him. Time was running out. The Zorathians' invasion fleet was already en route to Earth, and once they arrived, resistance would be futile. Humanity stood no chance against their superior technology and ruthless tactics. Yet, amid the despair, a spark of determination ignited within Ethan. He refused to give up, not without a fight. If the Zorathians thought Earthlings were helpless, they were wrong. He would find a way to stop them. Over the next few days, Ethan poured every ounce of his energy into studying the artifact and decoding the signals. His garage became a makeshift laboratory, cluttered with wires, tools, and scribbled notes. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by endless cups of coffee and adrenaline-fueled brainstorming sessions. Slowly but surely, he uncovered critical details about the Zorathians' plans. Their strategy relied heavily on communication networks to coordinate their fleet, a vulnerability Ethan intended to exploit. Using the knowledge he gained from the artifact, Ethan modified the satellite dish into a powerful transmitter capable of emitting electromagnetic pulses, EMPs. These pulses, he theorized, could disrupt the Zorathian systems, rendering their ships temporarily inoperable. It was a risky plan, but it offered the only hope of buying humanity enough time to mount a defense. With each passing day, Ethan grew more confident in his ability to succeed. He wasn't just a quiet kid anymore, he was Earth's unlikely champion. Meanwhile, life at school continued as usual, or so it seemed. Derek Malone remained oblivious to Ethan's secret mission, continuing his bullying antics with relentless enthusiasm. One afternoon during gym class, Derek shoved Ethan into a mud puddle, laughing as the other students cheered him on. Covered in dirt and humiliation, Ethan simply got up and walked away, his expression unreadable. Derek called after him, taunting him with insults, but Ethan didn't respond. Inside, however, a storm brewed. Every insult fueled his resolve. Someday soon, Derek and everyone else would learn just how wrong they had been about him. Back in his garage, Ethan tested the EMP device one final time. Sparks flew as the machine hummed to life, sending waves of energy rippling through the air. Satisfied with the results, he powered it down and leaned back in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. The hardest part was yet to come, but he was ready. Tomorrow, he would share his findings with the world and confront the invaders head on. Little did Ethan know fate had one more twist in store. While he prepared for battle, the Zorathians were closer than ever, their massive starships hurtling toward Earth at unimaginable speeds. The skies would soon part, revealing a sight that would terrify millions. But when that moment came, Ethan Carter would be waiting, with a plan, a purpose, and a fierce determination to protect the planet he called home. Ethan's plan was ambitious, bordering on impossible. He knew that defeating an alien invasion fleet wasn't something a single person could achieve, but he also knew he had no choice. The Zorathian starships were already en route to Earth, their massive engines cutting through the void of space with terrifying efficiency. Every second counted, and Ethan couldn't afford to waste a single moment. Yet, as much as he wanted to act immediately, there was one glaring problem. How could he convince anyone, let alone world leaders, to take him seriously? The idea of a quiet, unassuming teenager claiming to have decoded alien signals and built a device capable of disrupting interstellar communication seemed laughable. People would dismiss him as a conspiracy theorist or a prankster. Even his parents might think he'd gone off the deep end. But Ethan refused to let doubt paralyze him. If humanity was going to survive, someone needed to step up, and right. Now that someone was him, his first step was to document everything meticulously. Using his computer, he created detailed reports filled with diagrams, calculations, and explanations of the Zorathians' technology. He included screenshots of the alien symbols, recordings of the melodic tones emitted by the artifact, and even sketches of the visions he had experienced. It was overwhelming work, but Ethan didn't stop until every piece of evidence was neatly organized into folders labeled Alien Threat and EMP Device Design. Once satisfied with his documentation, he encrypted the files and uploaded them to multiple secure servers online. If anything happened to him, at least the information would survive. Next, Ethan turned his attention to spreading the word. He couldn't approach governments directly. That would take too long, and they might not believe him anyway. Instead, he decided to use the internet as his megaphone. Under the pseudonym Star Sentinel, he anonymously posted his findings on forums dedicated to science, UFO sightings, and conspiracy theories. At first, responses were skeptical, even mocking. One user wrote, "Nice try, kid. Did you make this up during math class?" Another commented, "Fake news alert." But amidst the ridicule, a few people began asking questions. They noticed the precision of Ethan's data, the authenticity of his tone. Slowly, whispers of a potential alien threat started gaining traction. Word spread faster than Ethan expected. Within days, his posts went viral, shared across social media platforms and picked up by independent journalists. Speculation about an impending alien invasion dominated headlines worldwide. Governments scrambled to investigate the claims, deploying satellites and telescopes to scan the skies for signs of extraterrestrial activity. Meanwhile, panic gripped the general public. People stockpiled food and water, while others organized protests demanding answers from authorities. Chaos erupted in cities around the globe, but Ethan remained focused. His goal wasn't to incite fear, it was to prepare humanity for what was coming. Despite the growing attention, Ethan stayed hidden, working tirelessly in his garage to perfect the EMP device. Each test brought new challenges, forcing him to tweak the design and recalibrate its settings. The machine hummed louder with every adjustment, emitting bursts of energy that made the lights flicker and caused nearby electronics to malfunction. Ethan worried about the collateral damage such a powerful weapon might cause, but he reminded himself of the stakes. If the Zorathians succeeded in their invasion, Earth's infrastructure would be obliterated anyway. Sacrificing a few gadgets was a small price to pay for saving billions of lives. As the days passed, Ethan's resolve hardened. He spent hours practicing scenarios in his mind, imagining how the confrontation with the Zorathians might unfold. What if the EMP failed? What if the aliens retaliated before he could activate it? These questions haunted him, but he refused to dwell on worst-case outcomes. Instead, he focused on what he could control, building the best defense possible. 3. School life felt surreal. The other students buzzed with excitement or terror about the rumored alien invasion. Some believed Ethan's anonymous warnings, while others dismissed them as a hoax. Derek Malone, however, remained blissfully unaware of the gravity of the situation. To him, the chaos was just another opportunity to mock Ethan. During lunch, one day Derek strutted over to Ethan's table, flanked by his usual entourage. "Hey, Brainiac," Derek sneered, dropping a crumpled flyer onto Ethan's tray. The flyer read, "Are aliens real? Prepare for the end," in bold letters. "Looks like your kind of party. Are you going to hide in your garage when the aliens come, or are you going to beg them to take you away?" Ethan didn't respond. He simply stared at Derek, his expression unreadable. For weeks, Derek had tormented him relentlessly, but now, Ethan felt a strange sense of detachment. Derek's insults no longer stung, they barely registered. In Ethan's mind, Derek was irrelevant, a mere speck compared to the cosmic storm brewing above them. Still, part of Ethan couldn't help but wonder what Derek would do when faced with real danger. Would he run, fight, or collapse under the weight of fear? That night, Ethan received a breakthrough. While monitoring the artifact, he detected a sudden spike in the signal's intensity. The pattern shifted rapidly, forming a sequence he hadn't seen before. Frantically, he cross-referenced the data with his notes and realized what it meant. The Zorathians were close, dangerously close. Their fleet was approaching Earth's atmosphere, and they planned to strike within days. Ethan's heart raced as he double-checked his calculations. There was no margin for error now. Everything depended on whether his EMP device worked as intended. With renewed urgency, Ethan finalized preparations. He loaded the EMP device onto a makeshift cart and wheeled it into the backyard. Aiming the satellite dish skyward, he ran final tests to ensure it was calibrated correctly. Sparks flew as the machine powered up, sending tremors through the ground beneath him. Satisfied with the results, he powered it down and secured it for transport. Tomorrow, he would move the device to a more strategic location, one where it could cover a wider area and maximize its impact. Before heading to bed, Ethan took a moment to reflect. Standing in the doorway of his garage, he gazed at the stars, twinkling in the night sky. Somewhere out there, the Zorathians were preparing for war. Their ships loomed closer with each passing hour, carrying death and destruction on an unimaginable scale. But here on Earth, a lone teenager stood ready to fight back, not with brute force, but with intelligence, ingenuity, and courage. Ethan allowed himself a faint smile. He had always been underestimated, dismissed as weak and insignificant. Now, those same qualities would become his greatest strength. The following morning, Ethan woke early, his body tense with anticipation. After a quick breakfast, he loaded the EMP device into his father's old pickup truck, a risky move, considering his parents weren't home to grant permission. He drove cautiously through the deserted streets, avoiding main roads to minimize the chances of being spotted. His destination was an abandoned observatory on the outskirts of Millfield, perched atop a hill that offered a clear view of the surrounding area. From there, the EMP device could reach its maximum range, targeting the Zorathians' fleet as soon as they entered Earth's airspace. Arriving at the observatory, Ethan parked the truck and began setting up the equipment. The process was painstaking, requiring precise alignment of the satellite dish and careful positioning of the artifact. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he worked, his hands trembling slightly from exhaustion and adrenaline. By mid-afternoon, everything was in place. All that remained was to wait, and wait he did. Hours passed in agonizing silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant chirp of birds. As dusk fell, Ethan climbed to the roof of the observatory, binoculars in hand, scanning the horizon for any sign of the invaders. The sky darkened, stars emerging one by one like diamonds scattered across velvet. Then suddenly, something changed. The air grew heavy, charged with an unnatural energy. A low rumble echoed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the first ship appeared. A colossal structure shaped like a dagger, its surface gleaming ominously in the moonlight. It hovered silently above the horizon, followed by dozens more, each larger than the last. The Zorathians had arrived. For a moment, Ethan froze, awestruck by the sheer scale of the fleet. But then reality snapped back into focus. This was it. The moment he had prepared for. Racing downstairs, he activated the EMP device, his fingers flying over the controls. The machine roared to life, vibrating violently as waves of electromagnetic energy surged outward. Above him, the Zorathian ships faltered, their sleek forms shuddering as their systems malfunctioned. Lights flickered, engines sputtered, and several vessels descended uncontrollably, crashing into the ground below. Ethan watched in awe as his plan unfolded exactly as he had hoped. The Zorathians were blind and disoriented, their carefully orchestrated invasion reduced to chaos. Humanity had been given a fighting chance, and it was all thanks to him. But the battle was far from over. As the initial wave of ships fell, reinforcements began arriving, their shields already adapting to counteract the EMP's effects. Ethan knew he couldn't hold them off forever. His device was powerful, but it wasn't indestructible. Still, he refused to give you. The night sky above Millfield was no longer peaceful. It had transformed into a battlefield, illuminated by the eerie glow of alien starships descending like vultures circling their prey. The Zorathian fleet stretched endlessly across the horizon, blotting out the stars with their massive forms. Each ship pulsed with an ominous energy, casting long shadows over the landscape below. Ethan stood atop the observatory roof, his heart pounding as he watched the chaos unfold. His EMP device had succeeded in disrupting the first wave of ships, but reinforcements were already arriving, their advanced technology adapting to counteract the electromagnetic pulses. Ethan knew this victory was only temporary. The Zorathians weren't going to retreat. They were too determined, too powerful. Their shields flickered back online, protecting their ships from further damage. Engines roared as they regained control, stabilizing their descent. One by one, the ships began firing beams of searing light at random targets on Earth's surface. Buildings crumbled, forests ignited, and entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble. Panic spread like wildfire as people fled for safety, unsure where to turn or what to do. Despite the destruction unfolding around him, Ethan refused to give up. He climbed down from the roof and returned to the EMP device, adjusting its settings once again. Sparks flew as he pushed the machine beyond its limits, increasing the intensity of the pulses. The vibrations grew louder, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Sweat poured down his face, but he ignored the pain coursing through his body. Every second counted, and he couldn't afford to stop now, not when humanity's survival depended on him. As the EMP device surged with renewed power, Ethan noticed something strange happening to the artifact buried within the system. Its glowing surface intensified, pulsating faster than ever before. Lines of light traced intricate patterns across its surface, forming symbols that seemed to shift and change in real time. Ethan's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. The artifact wasn't just a relic, it was alive, communicating with him. Images flooded his mind, coordinates, equations, and instructions for enhancing the EMP device's capabilities. It was as if the artifact wanted to help him fight the Zorathians. Without hesitation, Ethan followed the instructions, modifying the device according to the artifact's guidance. He added new components scavenged from his garage, rewiring circuits and recalibrating frequencies until the machine hummed with an otherworldly energy. When he activated it again, the results were astonishing. The EMP pulses expanded outward, in concentric waves covering a much larger area than before. Above him, the Zorathian ships shuddered violently, their shields flickering once more. Several vessels spiraled out of control, crashing into the ground below in fiery explosions. But the Zorathians weren't defeated yet. They adapted quickly, reinforcing their shields and launching countermeasures. Smaller scout ships detached from the main fleet, speeding toward the source of the interference, the observatory. Ethan saw them coming and braced himself for the inevitable confrontation. There was no time to escape. All he could do was stand his ground and hope his modifications would hold. The first scout ship landed mere yards away from the observatory, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. A hatch opened, and several Zorathian beings emerged. They were tall and slender, their bodies covered in smooth metallic skin that reflected the moonlight. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, scanning the area with cold precision. When they spotted Ethan, they paused, studying him curiously. For a moment, neither side moved, locked in a tense standoff. Ethan's mind raced. He didn't understand their language, but he could sense their hostility. These creatures weren't here to negotiate. They were here to eliminate the threat. Summoning every ounce of courage, Ethan grabbed a nearby tool, a metal rod, and brandished it defensively. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound brave. The Zorathians tilted their heads, seemingly amused by his feeble resistance. Then, without warning, they lunged forward, moving with terrifying speed. Just as the lead Zorathian reached for Ethan, the artifact reacted. A blinding flash of light erupted from its core, enveloping the area in a radiant glow. The Zorathians recoiled, shielding their eyes as the light intensified. Ethan shielded his own, face squinting through the brightness. When the light finally faded, the Zorathians were gone, vanished without a trace. Stunned, Ethan lowered his arms and stared at the artifact in disbelief. Had it somehow protected him? Was it capable of more than he had imagined? Before he could process what had happened, another explosion rocked the observatory. The remaining scout ships had begun bombarding the area, determined to destroy the EMP device. Ethan dove for cover as chunks of concrete rained down around him. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Desperation clawed at his chest as he scrambled to his feet, realizing he needed to act fast. The EMP device was still operational, but it wouldn't last much longer under sustained attack. Summoning every bit of strength he had left, Ethan dragged the device toward the edge of the hill. If he couldn't protect it, he would use it one final time. Positioning it carefully, he aimed the satellite dish directly at the largest cluster of Zorathian ships hovering overhead. With trembling hands, he activated the device, channeling all its remaining power into a single concentrated pulse. The resulting blast was deafening, sending shockwaves rippling through the atmosphere. Above him, the Zorathian fleet faltered, once again, their ships tumbling out of formation like leaves caught in a storm. For a brief moment, silence fell over the battlefield. The surviving ships retreated higher into the sky, regrouping as their commanders assessed the situation. Ethan collapsed to his knees, utterly spent. His body ached, his vision blurred, but he allowed himself a faint smile. Against all odds, he had held his ground. Humanity had been given a fighting chance, and that was enough. Meanwhile, word of Ethan's action spread rapidly across the globe. News helicopters captured footage of the EMP device in action, broadcasting images of the glowing artifact and the disoriented Zorathian fleet. Social media erupted with theories about the mysterious figure behind the attack. Some speculated it was a government project kept secret for years, while others believed it was the work of an alien ally. No one suspected that the hero was a quiet teenager from Millfield. Back at school, Derek Malone remained oblivious to Ethan's role in the unfolding drama. Chaos reigned as teachers tried to maintain order amidst growing panic. Students huddled together, whispering about the alien invasion and sharing wild rumors. Derek strutted through the hallways as usual, cracking jokes and mocking anyone who showed fear. "Relax, guys," he said with a smirk. "It's probably just some lame movie stunt. Aliens aren't real." But even Derek couldn't ignore the truth forever. That evening, as he walked home, he witnessed the aftermath of the battle firsthand. Smoke billowed from distant buildings. Emergency sirens wailed in the background, and military vehicles sped past, heading toward the outskirts of town. For the first time, Derek felt a twinge of unease. What if the rumors were true? What if aliens really were attacking Earth? The next day at school, Derek sought out Ethan, driven by a mix of curiosity and guilt. He found him sitting alone in the library, surrounded by books and notes. Ethan looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes betraying the toll of recent events. Derek hesitated, unsure how to approach him. Finally, he cleared his throat and spoke. "Hey, Brainiac, can I talk to you?" Ethan glanced up, surprised by Derek's uncharacteristic tone. "What do you want?" he asked warily. Derek shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. "Look, I know I've been a jerk to you, always teasing you, making fun of your projects, but after everything that's happening, I realized maybe I was wrong. You're not just some nerd hiding in your garage. You're actually smart. Like, really smart." He paused, then added quietly, "Maybe smarter than me." Ethan stared at him, taken aback by the admission. For years, Derek's bullying had made his life miserable. Now, here he was, apologizing, not because he wanted something, but because he genuinely seemed to regret his actions. After a long moment, Ethan nodded. "Thanks for saying that," he said simply. Derek managed a weak smile. "So, what's your plan? Are you going to save us all or something?" Ethan chuckled softly. "I'm doing my best, but we'll need everyone's help if we're going to win this fight." Derek straightened, determination replacing his earlier uncertainty. "Count me in. Whatever you need, I'm there." Ethan studied him for a moment, then extended his hand. "Deal." As the two boys shook hands, a sense of unity began to form, not just between them but among the students who had once mocked Ethan. Slowly, but surely, people started rallying around him, inspired by his courage and ingenuity. Even those who had doubted him now recognized his brilliance and resolve. Together they vowed to stand against the Zorathians, united in their determination to protect Earth. Unbeknownst to them, the Zorathians weren't finished. High above the planet, their commanders plotted their next move, analyzing humanity's defenses and searching for weaknesses. They underestimated Earth's resilience and the power of a single individual willing to risk everything for the greater good. Little did they know the battle for Earth had reached its climax. The Zorathians, though temporarily disoriented by Ethan's EMP device, were far from defeated. Their commanders regrouped high above the planet, analyzing humanity's defenses with ruthless precision. They underestimated Earth's resilience, dismissing its inhabitants as primitive and unworthy of negotiation, but they hadn't counted on one thing: a quiet, unassuming teenager named Ethan Carter. Back at the observatory, Ethan worked tirelessly to repair the EMP device after the intense bombardment it had endured. Sparks flew as he rewired circuits and replaced damaged components, his hands trembling with exhaustion. Every movement sent waves of pain through his body, but he pushed through, fueled by sheer determination. He knew the Zorathians wouldn't wait long before launching another attack. Humanity's survival depended on him finishing the repairs, and fast. As dawn broke over Millfield, Ethan stepped outside to survey the damage. The once peaceful town now resembled a war zone. Buildings lay in ruins, streets were littered with debris, and emergency vehicles raced back and forth, tending to the injured. Smoke hung heavy in the air, mixing with the scent of burning wood and metal. Despite the devastation, Ethan noticed something remarkable. People were coming together. Neighbors helped each other salvage belongings. Volunteers distributed food and water, and makeshift shelters sprang up in parks and open spaces. Even Derek Malone, who had spent years tormenting Ethan, was pitching in, organizing teams to clear rubble and assist survivors. Ethan felt a surge of hope. For so long, he had carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, believing he was alone in this fight. Now he realized he wasn't. Humanity might be flawed, divided by differences and misunderstandings, but when faced with a common enemy, they could unite. That realization strengthened his resolve. If everyone worked together, they stood a chance against the Zorathians. Inside the observatory, Ethan powered up the EMP device one last time. This time, he didn't act alone. A group of volunteers, students, teachers, and townsfolk had gathered to support him. Some brought tools and spare parts, while others offered their skills in engineering and technology. Together, they fine-tuned the machine, making it stronger and more efficient than ever before. The artifact pulsed steadily at the heart of the device, its glow brighter than ever, as if urging them forward. "We're ready," Ethan announced, his voice steady despite the fatigue etched on his face. "When the Zorathians come, we'll hit them with everything we've got." The crowd cheered, their spirits lifted by Ethan's leadership. For the first time in days, fear gave way to determination. They weren't just bystanders anymore. They were fighters united by a shared purpose. High above Earth, the Zorathian fleet prepared for its final assault. Their ships descended in perfect formation, weapons primed and shields reinforced. They had learned from their earlier mistakes and adapted accordingly. This time, there would be no room for error. Their commanders transmitted orders across the fleet, coordinating attacks with military precision. Earth's fate seemed sealed, but the Zorathians hadn't anticipated humanity's ingenuity or its courage. As their ships approached, Ethan activated the EMP device. A massive wave of electromagnetic energy surged outward, engulfing the alien fleet in a blinding flash of light. The Zorathian ships shuddered violently, their systems failing under the overwhelming force. Shields collapsed, engines sputtered, and weapons malfunctioned. Dozens of vessels plummeted from the sky, crashing into the ground below in fiery explosions. For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield. Then cheers erupted from the people of Millfield. Against all odds, they had turned the tide of the war. The Zorathians, however, weren't ready to surrender. With their primary fleet incapacitated, they deployed their ultimate weapon, a colossal mothership capable of obliterating entire cities with a single blast. The mothership loomed ominously, overhead, casting a shadow over the landscape. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent glow, reflecting the chaos below. A beam of light shot downward, targeting the observatory where Ethan and his team were stationed. Time seemed to slow as Ethan watched the beam approach, knowing there was no way to escape. "Get out of here," he shouted to the others, urging them to flee. But instead of running, they stayed by his side, refusing to abandon him. Derek stepped forward, his usual bravado replaced by quiet strength. "We're not leaving you," he said firmly. "If this is the end, we face it together." Touched by their loyalty, Ethan nodded. He turned back to the EMP device, channeling every ounce of energy into one final pulse. The artifact responded, glowing brighter than ever before. Lines of light traced intricate patterns across its surface, forming symbols that pulsed in sync with Ethan's heartbeat. It was as if the artifact understood the gravity of the situation and was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. With a deafening roar, the EMP device unleashed a burst of energy so powerful it shook the ground beneath their feet. The beam from the mothership faltered, its deadly glow dissipating into harmless sparks. Above them, the mothership trembled, its hull cracking under the strain. Then, with a deafening explosion, it broke apart, scattering fragments across the sky. The remaining Zorathian ships retreated, fleeing into the depths of space. Victory was theirs, but at a cost. The EMP device overloaded, collapsing into a pile of smoldering wreckage. The artifact, too, shattered into pieces, its light fading until it was gone. Exhausted and battered, Ethan sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. It was over. Earth was safe. In the days that followed, the world began to heal. Governments launched relief efforts, rebuilding cities and restoring order. Scientists studied the remnants of the Zorathian ships, eager to learn from their advanced technology. Meanwhile, Ethan became a global hero, celebrated for his bravery and ingenuity. News outlets dubbed him Earth's Guardian, sharing stories of how a quiet teenager had saved humanity from annihilation. Yet Ethan remained humble. He didn't seek fame or recognition. He simply wanted to return to his normal life. Back in Millfield, things slowly returned to some semblance of normalcy. The scars of the invasion lingered, but so did the bonds forged during the struggle. People treated each other with newfound kindness and respect, remembering the lessons they had learned during those dark days. Derek, in particular, underwent a profound transformation. Gone was the arrogant bully who had tormented Ethan for years. In his place stood a compassionate friend who admired Ethan's courage and intelligence. "You changed everything," Derek told him one afternoon as they sat together in the schoolyard. "Not just for me, but for everyone. You showed us what it means to stand up for what's right, even when no one believes in you." Ethan smiled, faintly. "I couldn't have done it alone," he replied. "It took all of us working together. That's what made the difference." As weeks turned into months, Ethan returned to his passion for science and invention. Though the artifact was gone, its legacy lived on in the lessons it had taught him about resilience and unity. He continued tinkering in his garage, dreaming of new projects that could benefit humanity. One day he hoped to use his knowledge to explore the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers seeking understanding and peace. And so, life moved forward. The skies above Millfield cleared, revealing a horizon filled with possibilities. Ethan Carter, once dismissed as a quiet outcast, had proven that intelligence, determination, and compassion could overcome even the greatest challenges. His journey had begun with a dream of distant galaxies, but it had ended with something far greater. The realization that heroes aren't born. They're made, one brave decision at a time. Far beyond Earth, among the countless stars, the Zorathians licked their wounds, vowing never to underestimate humanity again. Little did they know, their defeat had sparked something extraordinary, a spirit of unity and resilience that would guide Earth toward a brighter future. And at the center of it all stood Ethan, a quiet boy turned unlikely hero whose actions had changed the course of history forever.